What are the biggest what ifs that haunt Jazz fans from the past decade? Find out next on Locked On Jazz.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Jazz. My name is Leif Thulin. Excited to be back with you for one last episode of this stint, filling in for David Locke on Locked On Jazz. As most of you guys know by now, I'm a lifelong Jazz fan, credentialed NBA draft analyst, attendee of the 23 and 24 NBA Combines, Jazz broadcast assistant and statistician each of the past 4 seasons, and lover of college hoops. So I'll make sure you know what you need to know about your beloved Utah Jazz, both now and today we're going to venture a little bit into the past. Thanks for making Locked On Jazz your first listen each and every day. And remember, Locked On Jazz is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube at Locked On Jazz, where the best way to help us grow is to comment anything below. And today's question is, which one of these what-ifs is the biggest one to you guys? So today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. So today on the show, I'm going to rank out the biggest what-ifs from my perspective for the Jazz the past decade, and let's dive right in. So the most obvious one and the most painful one to me is what if Gordon Hayward had stayed? What if Gordon Hayward had stayed and we have Donovan Mitchell, Gordon Hayward, Rudy Gobert, an all-star trio. And the Jazz drafted Donovan Mitchell and Gordon Hayward was still on the team when that happened. And many felt that would happen as, you know, there was the optimism around Donovan Mitchell because he killed Josh Hart in workouts. He killed other people that were drafted in front of him, the Luke Kennards, the Malik Monks, and everyone felt so optimistic. I actually at that point was writing for a website associated with the Jazz that Locke was running, and I was in high school and I said the Jazz should draft Donovan Mitchell at 24. Well, we moved up, took him at 13. Dennis Lindsay said everyone will be fired if there's a word getting out on how good Donovan Mitchell is, and that was such a big draft hit, right? And there's just this optimism about the Jazz because just a year prior we'd beaten the Clippers in 7 and kind of spelled the end of Lob City. And the Jazz had this optimism about them as going forward, and then they got the apprehension of, oh, are we going to be able to keep Gordon Hayward? But we just got this really young piece that could be helpful. That'll help sway him. The team would have been young, paid modestly for what they had, and they would have had stars. Maybe not superstars, but they would have had 3 all-star caliber players. Because I don't think Gordon Hayward stunts the development of Donovan Mitchell. I don't think Donovan Mitchell is the same he was as a rookie with Gordon Hayward, but I do think he has an avenue to play in the place of Rodney Hood. You can see a world where Donovan Mitchell scores 15 as a rookie rather than over 20. And you have the Rudy Gobert Defensive Player of the Year, and his impact was never higher than these years early in the Donovan Mitchell career and late in the Gordon Hayward Jazz era. There would have been money to still go get the Bojan Bogdanovic if they wanted, but Peak Hayward would have been there instead. And though I love Bogey, Hayward was a beast, man. And there's better balance in offense. They could have multiple players initiate. The lineup could have looked as follows: Ricky Rubio, Donovan, Hayward, Favors, Gobert. And this is right before kind of the small ball era where Favors and Gobert would have been played out, and it would have become Royce O'Neal, and that still would work as a lineup because Hayward was a spectacular rebounder. Years to grow together. And I mean, for those of you who don't remember how good Gordon Hayward was, he 22 points, 5 boards, 5 assists, and that was an all-star berth on a team that made a second-round appearance, beating the Clippers, the Lob City Clippers, and then ran into the likes of the Rockets and the Warriors the next couple of years. And the Jazz likely run into that same issue, even if they had kept Gordon Hayward for the next couple of years. But the Jazz could grow together and add to those teams, whereas those two teams in just 2 years, knowing what we know now, aged out of contention, right? Like Kevin Durant tore his Achilles and the Raptors won. And the Rockets were not the same after the second year where Chris Paul hurts his hamstring. And the next Western Conference Finals team that competed with the Warriors was the Blazers. And the Blazers led throughout most of the series, but never really had a chance to win a game and got swept. The Jazz were better than that Blazers team, in my opinion, at different parts of the Donovan Mitchell era. But if you add Gordon Hayward to what became the Donovan Mitchell era, I think the Jazz have a core with 3 All-Stars, Quinn Snyder at the helm, and loads of chemistry from years together, and the optionality to add players to it with money, because Gordon Hayward would be getting paid. He'd get money, and he would have gotten more money with the Jazz than he got with the Celtics. And it was just his, comfortability with Brad Stevens. Of course, Quinn Snyder did great work with Gordon Hayward too, so that stung extra on 4th of July. But the other part that I found so agonizing was I don't know if he's going there or not. And I remember I was at tennis camp. Someone told me this, and I was like, "No, you're joking with me," because he knew I was from Utah. And then I would read the reports myself at lunchtime, and I was like, "Oh, that there's still reports of him, waffling, wavering on which way he's going to go." And I thought, well, he's got to feel pretty comfortable with the Jazz to have it, come back. Not the report's not ironclad. That means we have a chance to get him. And it made me think, man, maybe he thinks that our future is as bright as the Celtics' future. It wasn't. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are, very, very good. They've been kind of the preeminent success story of wings in the modern era. But Gordon Hayward, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert is a formidable trio that I think by the years of 2020, 2021, when the Jazz actually were competing anyway, where the Jazz were a 1 seed without the likes of Gordon Hayward. And in his career, frankly, had a tailspin at this point due to injuries. But in those years, the Jazz could have won a championship if you had, a slightly better perimeter defense and another option to help Gordon Hayward score the basketball. You go get Mike Conley, and that's still something the Jazz can do with Gordon Hayward. You add to that in the future, it's Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell, Gordon Hayward, and then you probably go Royce O'Neal. You can have favorites come off the bench with Gobert, and you can supplement here and there. The team is just more balanced, and that's the biggest what if to me, because in a small market, you need to grow internally, and it means you got to capitalize and extend those stars that you're homegrown. Like Donovan Mitchell did the same thing. We had a homegrown star, a couple all-stars in Utah, and he wanted out. And Gordon Hayward was a guy who liked Utah by all accounts. And he said after the fact that he enjoyed Utah and he didn't love the way it was perceived and how it went down. And, it irritates some fans. But frankly, if the Jazz keep Gordon Hayward, the Jazz kind of, in my opinion, put themselves as ironclad home court advantage type contenders. I'm not saying they're going to beat the Warriors. I don't think they're going to beat the Rockets in those next 2 years. But you get to year 3 and 4 of Gordon Hayward's second contract and year 3 and 4 of Donovan Mitchell's first contract. I think that there's a real world where the Jazz could have represented the West in a finals appearance. Like, that's the biggest what if to me in the past decade. You could make a biggest what if of the past, of my lifetime, which is the Deron Williams start, basically. You can make it what if Deron Williams and Jerry Sloan got along and stuff like that. That might be bigger as a Jazz fan in my formative years of becoming a Jazz fan. But of the ones where it's been the last decade and even since then, I think that's the one that stands out to me as what is the most impactful, not only in just one singular moment, but how it impacts future years of the Utah Jazz more than Donovan leaving, more than Rudy leaving, because those had to happen because one was dissatisfied and the other just didn't fit the timeline. This one could have accelerated the timeline, expedited the process of becoming a contender, and we had the next guy to supplement Gordon Hayward and make a further run, even though with the team full of veterans, we found this chemistry and beat what was supposed to be a power in the Clippers. I think Gordon Hayward leaving the Jazz, the biggest what if of the last decade. Let me know what you guys think on that one. That core with the chemistry, and I think Quinn Snyder is so misunderstood because there are some issues in terms of making adjustments in the playoffs, and that's all I hear about his issues. But I think Quinn Snyder's a mad genius. Like, his offense, he was ahead of his time. And he knew what he was doing. He maximized teams that were not as good as what they ended up being. And I think he's punished for that, both in the playoffs and in regular season. But that's the biggest what if for me. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the second biggest what if, and maybe the biggest to some of you guys. It's what if the Jazz beat the Clippers in that series? All that and more straight ahead on Locked On Jazz. College football's back, and honestly, there's nothing better than the energy of tailgates and being in the stands with your fellow fans. The only downside, trying to get tickets. There's endless queues, hidden fees, and prices that jump at checkout, and that's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pull up the Game Time app, and just a couple taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite football games as low as $25. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create the code, and use code LOCKEDONNBA Create the account and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go download Game Time today. And I also want to tell you guys about my friends at Murdoch Hyundai. The Murdochs have been in Utah for over 80 years. The Hyundai is the best car for you that money can buy. Safety features, bells, whistles, all in amazing cars for amazing prices. The SUV lineup is a star-studded lineup featuring the Kona, the Tucson, the Santa Fe, and the Palisade. I've driven the Tucson and loved it. My mom drove it as well, thought it was a fantastic car, and kept it. And then you look at, if you're looking for an electric car, because some of these are electric, some of these are hybrid, you can get the new Ioniq 6. It's amazing. It's electric. Looks like a Porsche and just won the World Car of the Year. And there are 3 locations, Linden, Murray, and Logan. I've been to the one in Murray. They treated me amazingly, and I'm sure they'll treat you well as well. And make sure to tell them you're a listener to Locked On Jazz, and they'll give you a little extra special treatment. Welcome back to Locked On Jazz. Leif Thulin with you here, recounting some painful what-ifs of the past decade. And the next one is, what if we had beaten the Clippers in a series where we led 2-0 and we led at halftime both Game 5 and in Game 6, and it was brutal to not win those. Actually, before we get into that, I have an important request for you guys. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make this your favorite your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in our show notes. And thank you guys for helping us out. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can also see it on the bottom of the screen with this with a code. So back to what I was saying. What if the Jazz had beaten the Clippers in a series where we led 2-0? We covered our home court right there in the beginning. And in games 5 and 6, we shot the lights out in the first half and struggled in the second half. And I'll talk about that series again. It's a painful one. But also, what happens if the Jazz had adjusted? We'd guarded Terrence Mann and beaten the Clippers. And could we have won it all? Like, that's the ramification I'm going to talk about, the angle I'm going to take, and give you my honest opinion of how I felt then, and more of one that's more well-grounded now. The idea was, what if we won? Because I don't know, we were so far off. It's not because we were so far off, but I think, you didn't win the series and didn't even go to 7. Like, we can't say, oh, we're going to win the championship. But let's explore how simply doable it was to win this series. And then what happens next, I think, is more up in the air than you'd think. So we were up big in Game 6. We all know that, and that's the one that's painful, is Terrence Mann just lit us up, and he got open 3 after open 3. But Game 5, I thought it didn't bode well to torch the Nets to the degree that we did in the first half, and only led by 5. And it was at home, and if you're thinking, hey, we're up 5 at half at home, like, you're probably not mad at it. But the tenor of the game felt untenable. Like, you could not keep that pace going, shooting that well, and to only have that small of a lead did bother me. Bogey at 23 at the half. And so I wrote those notes, kind of setting it in. And then I did some research on, was I right in my recollection of it? And it might have been worse than I even remembered. Bogey had 23 at half. The Clips didn't have Kawhi. This is after Game 4, he and Bogey collided knees. And you look at what Kawhi was the rest of the way, and you kind of think, okay, Kawhi Leonard's the heartbeat of the Clippers. Like, every big series that they've needed, like when they went to Game 7 with the Mavericks, Kawhi Leonard was the reason that they won that series. Kawhi Leonard guarded Luka Doncic at the end. Kawhi Leonard had 40-plus in a couple of those games. And the Clips didn't have him, so you had to feel pretty good. We shot 62% from the field in the first half and 57% from 3. That was terrifying to only be up a little. And I remember bemoaning that to my poor younger brother because he had a job, his first job, and my job was to pick him up at halftime. And we were coordinating it, and I was like, "You're taking too long," and I'm terrified because we're shooting the lights out and we're only up 5. And he knows basketball, and he understands what that means and what it means to me as a diehard Jazz fan. But he had to hear me complain about how the Jazz weren't up more. The only bad part is that Playoff P, as he was known after we beat them with the OKC Thunder, was torching us with no Kawhi Leonard, and he had 22 on 9 of 14 shooting in the first half, matching Bogey. And in the second half, the Jazz more than regressed to the mean as they shot 30% from the field, shooting 3 of 24 from 3 in the second half. Donovan went 3 of 14 in the second half, and the Clippers had 4 members score in double digits in the second half in a series where they didn't have – in a game where they didn't have Kawhi Leonard. They guarded incredibly well, and they played no bigs as Zubac got benched and did not play in the second half. The Jazz got outscored by 14 points in the third, and that game still stings for me because it was at home. It was truly a tale of two halves, and you'd think at home the role players, the ancillary pieces played better, and that was not the case in this one. And so you think, okay, well, now we're in trouble. We're going to LA. At least they have no Kawhi. And game 6 is the one that's really memorable because the Jazz had a championship response. The first half, they played amazingly, led by 22 in game 6 at halftime. Donovan and Clarkson had 43 combined in the first half on amazing efficiency. Like if there's ever a knock on those two, is sometimes they'd be labeled chuckers. They weren't super efficient to get their points. Amazing efficiency. The Jazz as a team shot 59% from the field and 63% from 3. So once again, a cautionary tale, but you're up 22. You feel pretty good. Even though it's on the road, there's no Kawhi Leonard, you're up 22 points. Mann had 14.5, Paul George had 14.5, but on 14 shots for Paul George. So you feel better about that than his 9 of 14 for 22 in the game prior. It was a great response, and that had to make you believe, yeah, we had a bad half. Like, we're back. Second half, the Clippers shot 71% from the field and 74% from 3. Terrence Mann had 25, Reggie Jackson had 22, and Paul George had 14 in the second half alone. Like, you're not going to win a game where that supporting cast, the ancillary pieces, play that well. And there was once again no Zubac in the middle, and the Jazz didn't guard the perimeter at all, couldn't guard a chair, and left Terrence Mann as the dare shooter where he hit 5 threes in the second half. The what if is not like, oh, we lost those games. The what if is if we hold on to those leads, or either of them, we go back to Utah for game 7, and they have a great chance to win a game, you should be able to win 2 or 3 when you're the 1 seed and you're playing a team without their best player. That's the what if, and especially 2 or 3 on your home court. And our offense was prolific that year. So it's unlikely we shoot 3 of 24 again. But it's also what causes my greatest frustration in that series is how inept the defense was in game 6. We didn't guard a chair, and the perimeter was so bad, yet Rudy was the scapegoat. Like, the narrative around it was, oh, it's Rudy's guy getting torched. The what if is, can we make the finals? Because I don't think the matchup with the Suns was our best. I said on air before, both on here and ESPN 700, I think the Suns would have won that series because they shot great from the mid-range. They had our number when we played them in the regular season. But you got to think there's a chance. I like our chance against the Suns way more than most of the Western Conference Finals that we've played against, that we've played in or could have played in, right? Like, you look at the Warriors and Rockets the years before. Like, I don't think we beat the Warriors and Rockets even if we had Gordon Hayward and Donovan Mitchell. Now they thwarted the Jazz in the second round if we got there. And then they kept thwarting other teams. And then if you go back to the years with Darren Williams, the Lakers and Spurs, we played well. We tried our best, but we had no chance. Like, we would go 5 or 6. We really didn't have a chance. But the Suns, that's winnable. Like, you have to play well. You have to execute well. You have to, control Devin Booker. Donovan's got to outplay Book. And we got to have an answer for Chris Paul's tactical brilliance. And you guys will see a recurring theme. I love Chris Paul. And I know he's annoying to some, but man, is he a basketball genius. I liked our chances against the Suns more than any Western Conference Finals of the past 20 years. I felt like they were one of the worst Western Conference teams to make it to the finals in quite a while. And that meant we had a chance. Like, the other one would be the Mavericks with Luka a couple of years ago. I think the Jazz from that year could beat them. I'm not saying it's a guarantee or anything, but I'm just talking about the weakest nominees to win a championship that have come through the West. The West has been a gauntlet for a long time. This was a good chance for the Jazz. And then the thing that I'll say is I liked the Jazz's matchup a lot with the Bucks. That was winnable. And Giannis scores. We put Rudy on Giannis, and the teams mostly have to build these walls and they have to put so many bodies in that to spray out open shots. The Jazz take away threes against the Bucks. And what they did is they put Rudy on Giannis, and Rudy guards Giannis, and he gives up 40, but they don't get assists, and that's better than 30 with 10 assists. And that's what Giannis does all the time. And he gets amazing rebounds, and he blocks everything. And the Bucks had to come back in that series and win. And Giannis played through injury. Like, I really think the Jazz had a good chance. And to back it up, the Jazz won both the matchups in the season comfortably. They won by double digits in both of them, both the home and away. I do think we lose against the Suns. Well, you take that chance about over just about any Western Conference team that's made it to the finals or made it to the conference finals in a long, long time. It's a what if. It's grasping at straws. I'm very well aware, but my frustration really stems from we didn't adjust at all defensively, and if we had, and we just X'd out, and meaning that you peel off and guard a different defender. If you're beaten, you run to the guy uh, who your teammate helps in to guard, and you take his guy, aka it would be Terrence Mann or Maxi Kleba. The Jazz adjust that, and I think they can win that series because defense is really what let us down as opposed to offense. We had one bad shooting half, and then responded with an amazing offensive game. Like you shouldn't lose a game where you're up 22 at half. You shouldn't lose a game where you shoot that well at home and they're missing their best player. It's a big what if to me to see if the Jazz could have made a finals run and what's been the best series or best season that I've ever witnessed in a regular season by my favorite team, the Utah Jazz. Coming up next, we're going to talk about what if Mike Conley made the three. That's a big one. How far could the Jazz progress in the bubble, and what are the other ramifications from it? All that and more straight ahead on Locked On Jazz. It's football season, so whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. It's right around the corner, so take a flyer on the MVP race. I'm a big fan of Joe Burrow. Had prolific numbers last year, not a defense to back him up. Maybe he'll be a little better, win a few more games, and his numbers stay the same. You got a good chance. Or if you want to crown your champion, what if the Chiefs have another chance in them? You know, Travis Kelce now engaged. That's big. But Patrick Mahomes, best quarterback in football, and you give him a little bit of a revenge tour, I don't mind that pick. Or if you want to parlay your division winner, if they're dark horses or favorites, the two I like are the Eagles in the NFC East and the Texans in the AFC South. Let me know what you guys are playing, but visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Welcome back to Locked On Jazz. Leif Thulin with you here. And the question really becomes, what if Mike Conley had made that three against the Nuggets and the Jazz win the series? Or what if the Jazz just won game one? However you want to spin it. What if the Jazz had beaten the Nuggets in game seven? Or if they'd won game one without Donovan Mitchell's 8-second call as he dribbled across half court and didn't know the time and score? That one still stings. How far could the Jazz have gone in the bubble, and what are the other ramifications that go beyond it? And those are the ones that actually intrigue me more. The Clippers were who the Nuggets beat in the next series, and this was the Nuggets' first time making the Western Conference Finals. They beat the Clippers in 7 from 3-1 down, so they went back-to-back 3-1 series, which made everyone think, oh, the Jazz blew it and should have won. And they should have won, or you could say they could have won, but how likely was it that we beat the Clippers? I mean, there was no Bogey, and Bogey was unbelievable the next year when we lost the Clippers. But also the Clippers were coming. The only thing I would say really helps the Jazz in this matchup more than the basketball side of things where they had Kawhi and we didn't have Bogey is that the Clippers were among the most vocal teams voicing their displeasure of playing at the bubble. That they did not like being within the bubble. They were sick and tired of one another. You hear stuff from the past about that, and you also could kind of see it when they were starting to see some adversity when the Nuggets were coming back. The Jazz match up with the teams that played big, but Ty Lue proved the next year that we just spoke of in the previous segment that going small hurt us, and I'm not certain that he wouldn't have made that adjustment. And like I said, Kawhi Leonard played. Kawhi Leonard is unbelievable. So was the displeasure that the Clippers felt of playing in the bubble enough that the Jazz and their seemingly awesome vibes, the Jazz, playing way better than expectation in the bubble without Bojan, with, getting over the COVID stuff with Rudy and Donovan. Is there enough to get the Jazz past them? I don't know. I'm going to lean probably not because, once again, we were a 6 seed. And I don't think anyone could beat the Lakers that year. LeBron and AD were great. They were healthy. And Dwight played well. They had winners like Rondo and Danny Green. That was a very underrated team that I think kind of steamrolled the competition and flies under the radar, whether it's because of the narrative of, oh, it's a Mickey Mouse championship for LeBron. Like, there's too many narratives about that. My point being is I don't think the Jazz can beat them. But what I do wonder is, could that experience of playing that extra series, if the Jazz beat the Nuggets, what does that confidence do? Does that confidence instill something for the next year? I wonder if that could toughen the Jazz up and make us more formidable the next year when the Jazz were the number one team in the West. When the Jazz had such an amazing season, but that was the first season with the full core together. They had Bogey back. You had more years of Conley and Donovan in the backcourt. You had more years to get acquainted with different roles. And then the loss against Denver really hurt. But the loss against the Clippers was agonizing, and more so to me due to the lack of adjustments and having a season prior where adjustments could have been made. For instance, and I mentioned this the one before, I wish we'd X'd out on Kleba the year after this one, and certainly against Terrence Mann. So even if we were beaten by the dribble penetration, we could have made the guy who was beaten, let's just say it's Donovan Mitchell guarding Paul George. Paul George drives past Donovan. Whoever helps off of Terrence Mann, which would be Gobert, you run out to Terrence Mann, make him drive again, and you continue to make them drive and kick as opposed to leaving it as dare shots. I know that was strategic, but at a certain point, they're NBA players for a reason. They make shots. Despite the percentages, they were killing us. And I blame Quinn Snyder for a lack of adjustment, but I blame the defense, the perimeter defense, and certainly not Gobert for leaving the guy open. Make them drive into what has been our defensive anchor, Rudy Gobert, as we wanted all teams to do, to shoot mid-range jump shots. For some reason, that was abandoned, and that frustrates me. But the point that I make about that, while I bemoan my frustration, which is still there, I still think more than anything, that moment would have been epic for Mike Conley. It would have been epic for the Jazz if he'd made it. But if the Jazz win that series, they gain more valuable experience to be ready to face the tribulations that eventually shattered the Jazz as we knew them. The way the Jazz were constructed was a good way. We were ahead of the time in terms of the space, shooting a ton of threes, pick and roll to get to a three-pointer, use the vertical lob threat of Rudy to create open threes for Ingles in the corner. We had a spark plug scorer in Clarkson. Like, the team was well built. We had issues. We were pretty poor defensively. We were pretty inept at guarding the best wings, but we had the best defensive player in the world at the time. But what I think happens is if the Jazz win that series and play another series against the Clippers the year before, and even if we lose that one, I think the Jazz are more battle-tested and more able to handle the stress, the pressure of expectation, and able to adjust more because they've seen more basketball. Like, you look at the teams that have won championships, and even the Thunder this past year. The Thunder lost to a team that, frankly, was not more talented than them. But I believe pretty confidently would beat the Thunder because they had more experience. Luka lost to the Clippers time and time again, despite amazing play by himself. He scored like 35 in a series against Kawhi and Paul George when his first time in the playoffs. He did it again, and he kept losing. And then all of a sudden, he plays the Thunder, and they're really good. They're the one seed, speaking of 2 years ago. And they beat them comfortable in that series. The Thunder now have that trial and tribulation in their mind. And they say, well, you know what? We're going to be ready for the 7-game series against the Nuggets. I think they lose that 7-game series if they hadn't had the bumps in the road that they had the year prior. I think they react more poorly to the situation of playing the Pacers in Game 7 or in that series and losing games that they should have won. And I still think actually the Thunder were a little lucky that they were lucky that teams were injured because they were really good. They dominated. But every time the game was close, the Thunder lost. My point being that the Thunder are a championship team. Their roster was awesome. They won 68 games. That's way better than what we were. We were 52-20. But yet we were sensational that year. We had a chance to win a championship. And I think if the Mike Conley had hit the 3 the year prior in the bubble, the Jazz get at least one more series, whether it's a win or a loss, maybe 2 more series, where I think that's the cap. I think the Lakers beat us no matter what, if the Clippers don't already, which they probably do. But the Jazz are more battle-tested, know what to work on, have more continuity, and more trust together of how to win a series. And that is what the biggest what if is in terms of if Mike Conley had made that 3. Not to mention, would have been one of the more epic shots in Jazz history. Let me know what you guys think. It's always fun to go down memory lane. This one might be a little bit more of a painful episode than the biggest triumphs in playoff series that we did the other day. It's been a pleasure filling in for David for this month. He'll be back with you guys after the holiday weekend. So I hope you guys have a great holiday weekend. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And thank you for making Locked On Jazz your first listen today. For your second listen, find the Locked On NBA podcast where there's no offseason. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure talking with you guys for the past month, and hopefully I'll be back with you guys soon. And as always, go Jazz.